Uh, Welcome, everyone, to the DAR Museum Online. I am Sarah Kirspel, the coordinator of museum engagement and outreach for the DAR Museum. And today is our monthly Tuesday Talk lecture series. Today's lecture is Fighting for Freedom, Black Craftspeople and the Pursuit of Independence. And this is presented on the second Tuesday of the month. Our series highlights topics related to the DAR Museum collection. And for the rest of the year, we're going to be focused on different aspects of the Fighting for Freedom exhibition, which just opened at the end of last month. So every Saturday, we have family activities from 10 to 2 at the museum. This month is weaving. And our next Tuesday talk, I am very happy to announce, will be on May 13th. We're going to have Dr. Tiffany Moman of the Black Craftspeople Digital Archives sharing all that they made, identity, material culture, and the Black presence in South Carolina decorative arts. These and a full list of our upcoming lectures and programs can be found on our website, www.dar.org/museum, and select calendar of events. Or you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the DAR Museum. We offer family programs, Girl Scout programs, symposia, exhibition tours, evening events, and more. But that is not what you are all here for today. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, our very own William Strollo. He is the curator of exhibitions for the Daughters of the American Revolution Museum. He is responsible for the museum's art, print, numismatics, and metal collections. He also coordinates all exhibition installations, working with each of the museum's curators to ensure their research turns into reality. William received both his bachelor's and master's degrees in history at the Virginia Commonwealth University and has participated in the Addingham Summer School and the Museum of Early Southern Decorative Arts Summer Institute. Previously, William has worked at Wilton House Museum in Richmond, Virginia, and for Colonial Williamsburg. So join me in welcoming William.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you all for joining today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There we go. All right. Thank you for joining me today for this talk. I am excited to give you a glimpse into our latest exhibition today. We worked hard on this exhibition for over 4 years, and we're thrilled that it's now open at the DAR Museum. So what I'd like to do today is take you through the exhibit section by section and talk about one or two of the objects in each of those sections and how it relates to the exhibition. But before we do that, I would also like to introduce you to my co-curators of this exhibition. Doctors Tiffany Moman and Torrin Gatson are the co-directors of the Black Craftspeople Digital Archive. The Black Craftspeople Digital Archive, or BCDA, seeks to showcase Black craftsmanship while bringing to light the stories of Black craftspeople. Founded in 2019, the BCDA brings together scholars, students, museums, and archives professionals and the public to collaborate and spread the story of Black craftspeople. The BCDA originally began as a project founded by Dr. Moman and inspired by her research on John Quash Williams, an enslaved and later free Black master carpenter responsible for the carpentry and joinery work on the circa 1750 Charles Pinckney Mansion in Charleston, South Carolina. Dr. Moman's research into Williams led to the development of a map tracing Williams's life around Charleston, and soon that map incorporated places associated with the enslaved Black craftsmen who aided Williams in the construction of the Pinckney Mansion. By fall 2019, the project expanded to include more Black craftspeople in Charleston, involved in varieties of trades. And with the support of the BCDA team, including students and fellows, the archive continues to grow daily. I am beyond thankful for the work that these two have contributed, Doctors Moman and Gatson, to this exhibition and its success. For the past 4 years, we worked closely to identify the individuals, stories, and objects that best represented the idea of freedom through the lens of Black craftspeople. And this is really the main idea of the exhibition. How did Black craftspeople find semblances of freedom and independence through their trade? With so many early Black craftspeople, while so many were forced into taking up a trade, they still retained some control over the decisions they made when creating. The objects in this exhibition seek to embrace the story of all those who fought to make this country free by centering on the lives and experiences of Black craftspeople and artisans. from the eve of the Revolution to the Civil War and beyond. How America tells its story of its revolution has long centered on one-sided narratives and celebrations of the Founding Fathers. These historical representations have constructed a history often devoid of any critiques of dominant narratives and often lacking the inclusion of many different people with many different viewpoints who contributed to freedom in the country. These objects challenge us to confront the complicated histories of what it means to be free in the United States. They bring us closer to the legacies of enslavement, the failures of the decorative arts to fully embrace Black artisans and their impact, and they challenge us to ponder whose names and what objects are missing as we acknowledge and celebrate Black artistic contributions in this time period. The themes in this exhibition, the themes in this exhibition include mastery, contradictions, pride, identity, sojourn, and moments. And they center the lives, experiences, trials, and triumphs of Black craftspeople, illuminating their journey towards autonomy and presents a new insight into the American fight for freedom. The first object visitors will engage with is this powder-horn made by carved by Gershom Prince. Gershom Prince actively fought for freedom, for the freedom of countless people he did not know, yet died before he could see the fruits of this labor. A Black soldier in the French and Indian War and the Revolutionary War, Prince carried this powder horn during his service to the American colonies and the United States. Inscribed on the horn is his name, elaborate decoration, and the date 1761. He documented his participation in independence by carving this horn. Prince fought in the battles of Germantown, Brandywine, and finally Wyoming, where he and the powder horn were unfortunately separated by fatal wounds in the battle with British soldiers. And here you can see on the reverse, you can see Gershom Prince at the top of the horn here, and again, his name on the reverse, and his horn carved into the side. Visitors will also interact with this image when they first approach the gallery. This unidentified craftsperson most likely fled with his crosspeen hammer from the area around Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, as Confederate General Robert E. Lee crossed into Franklin County toward Gettysburg. Like countless other Black craftspeople, the surviving records of this Black craftsperson are sparse. Yet, the proud display of this crosspeen hammer and the uncompromising look on his face invite us to reflect on his life and experiences during his experiences building a freed nation for all. We are grateful for this. This is on loan to us from a private collection. I should also mention that the powder horn is on loan to the DAR Museum from the Luzerne County Historical Society for this exhibition. The albumen we saw in that previous slide is incredibly rare and similar to another with a Virginia connection of former blacksmith Gilbert Hunt. Now, this is not in our exhibition, but is also a very important piece because it is also so very rare. Gilbert Hunt was an African-American blacksmith in Richmond who became known in the city for his aid during two fires, the Richmond Theater Fire of 1811 and the Virginia State Penitentiary Fire of 1823. Born enslaved in King William County, Hunt trained as a blacksmith in Richmond and remained there most of the rest of his life. After the Richmond Theater caught fire on December 26, 1811, he ran to the scene and, with the help of Dr. James D. McCaw, helped to rescue as many as a dozen women from the fire. He performed a similar feat of courage on August 8, 1823, during the penitentiary fire. Hunt purchased his freedom in 1829, immigrated to the West African colony of Liberia, where he stayed only 8 months. After returning to Richmond, he resumed blacksmithing and served as an outspoken and sometimes controversial deacon in the First African Baptist Church. In 1848, he helped form the Union Burial Ground Society. In 1859, A Richmond author published a biography of Hunt, largely in the elderly blacksmith's own words, but portraying him as impoverished and meek, a depiction at odds with the historical record. And Hunt died in 1863. Entering into the gallery, the first theme visitors encounter is the section we call Mastery. And here they are greeted with a quote from Lewis Hughes, in which he writes, "There were slaves who were carpenters and workers in wood who could turn their hands in almost anything." Lewis Hughes wrote a memoir titled 30 Years a Slave from Bondage to Freedom, and published in 1897. Born enslaved in Charlottesville, Virginia in 1832, Lewis Hughes encountered how enslaved craftspeople used their knowledge and hands to make almost everything on a plantation. With their hands, enslaved artisans turned the natural world into objects and possessions, mastering mediums such as wood, clay, paper, and metals. Through the passage of knowledge from one enslaved person to another, enslaved people learned the best way to bend a board without breaking it, the appropriate ratio of water to clay necessary to mold a crock, how to hammer a sheet of silver to create a design, how to fashion tools that made work easier yet beautiful, and they implemented this knowledge in their day-to-day labor. Their conversion of the natural world into the practical made it possible for enslavers and others to adorn their homes with the finest furnishings. Their richness of skill enabled them to perfect techniques of making and producing, which spurred learning. Enslaved craftspeople, as a result, often knew more than their enslavers about the creation of objects. The objects here in this section range from the utilitarian to the elaborate, showcasing the depth of skills mastered. One of the objects visitors will see here is this secretary wardrobe. Black cabinet maker John Goff signed his name to the bottom case of the only known piece of his work, making this secretary wardrobe a rare surviving example of early American furniture attributed to a Black artisan. Made of mahogany, the secretary wardrobe and its neoclassical influences reflect Charleston furniture styles on the eve of the Revolution. Goff first appears in the documentary record in Elizabeth Aiken's 1763 will, which included the manumission arrangements that Goff pay his executors £250 to secure his freedom. Aiken also included a clause that once Goff was freed, his executors would pay him £50 to buy the tools that enabled him to craft a life after enslavement. It took just 2 months for after Aiken's death, for Goff to earn the money to be and declared a free man. We are thankful for the loan of this piece from the Historic Charleston Foundation. And here you can see on the top of that bottom case, John Goff's signature. Next, visitors will see this hollow cut or silhouette of a boy by Moses Williams. And to start this off, we have a quote from Charles Willson Peale to Raphael Peale about Moses Williams, in which he writes, "I have spoken to a gentleman who says he was at your room in Norfolk, which was so crowded that he could not get his profiles. Moses has made him a good one. Being from Carolina, he did not at first relish having it done by a mulatto. However, I convinced him that Moses could do it much better than I could." That is Charles Willson Peale writing to Raphael Peale in 1803. Now, Moses Williams was born enslaved in 1777 and held in bondage by the famous portrait artist and owner of the Philadelphia Museum, Charles Willson Peale. A renowned painter, Peale deliberately chose not to train Moses in the methods of fine arts painting, instead electing to teach him silhouette cutting, a lesser form of art of that period. Williams swiftly perfected the craft, showing Peale that he was exceptionally skilled and could create a high volume of silhouettes for his museum. In turn, Peale purchased a physiognotrace, a device for tracing profiles in miniature, for Williams's use. The delicate work of creating a silhouette required Williams to cut a silhouette from its center and overlay an overlay above black cardstock or fabric. The majority of Williams's customers were white museum patrons, and the operation of the physiognotrace required Williams to stand close to seated patrons and guide the device carefully to their face. Williams skillfully crafted 8,000 silhouettes per year, carefully navigating the precarious lines between black and white. And next to this image, you'll see a overlay of the Peel Museum. And over here, we know exactly where Moses Williams is working. He's working here in the bottom right corner of that structure where it says profiles. And then this is the physiognotrace. This actually belonged to Raphael Peel. So I'll give you an idea of what that device was that Moses Williams was using to create those profiles. Next, visitors can explore the section of the exhibition entitled Contradictions. The American Revolution was in itself a great contradiction, one in which British subjects fought for their independence and liberty from the British, yet denied those same tenets to the estimated 500,000 enslaved people in the American colonies. At the successful conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the newly structured republic faced further turmoil as they battled with the issue of slavery. Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence and third president of the United States, wrote, "I consider it at once as the knell of the Union." George Washington, Revolutionary War hero, plantation owner, and enslaver of hundreds of people, and first president of the United States, wrote, quote, "There is not a man living who wishes more sincerely than I do to see a plan adopted for this abolition of slavery." Despite their fears of the damaging effects of slavery on the country and their own morality, neither of the founding fathers took immediate and drastic action to end slavery, as both men and their families were dependent upon the practice, business, and profits of slavery. With the end of the Civil War, Jefferson's famous declaration that all men are created equal became a possibility. On December 6, 1865, Congress ratified the 13th Amendment to end slavery, except as punishment for a crime, never truly abolishing the institution. This brutal contradiction continues to shape the nation's laws and our shared identity. The objects here call on us to confront the contradictions of our founding fathers and others. They represent the work of enslaved craftspeople who heard their enslavers call for liberty, yet received no liberty in their lifetimes. These two objects, on loan to the exhibition from Thomas Jefferson's Monticello, have a very familiar name attached to them. This dumbwaiter and revolving table were made possible by John Hemmings. Monticello was a plantation home to 600 enslaved people held in bondage by Jefferson. Despite Jefferson's bold claims in the Declaration, he failed to live up to his own written words. Jefferson continually leaned on the exploitation of those he enslaved to not only make Monticello a showplace, but also to satisfy his intellectual whims through the crafting of multiple objects, such as this dumbwaiter and revolving table, made by enslaved cabinetmaker John Hemmings. John Hemmings was born enslaved at Monticello in 1776 on the eve of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. Hemmings was raised in the carpentry trade and demonstrated a clear ability to work with wood. By his teenage years, he was tasked with helping white woodworkers enlarge the main house. Once James Dinsmore, the chief joiner on the plantation, left Monticello, Hemmings assumed his role. Jefferson's shop accounts document the creation of this revolving table and dumbwaiter for their use at his retreat home, Poplar Forest. Hemmings remained enslaved at Monticello until Jefferson's death, at which point he was freed with all his tools. Next, we have this fireplace and this fireplace mantle and cornice molding from the National Historic Landmark Menoken Plantation, home of Declaration signer Francis Lightfoot Lee. Located in Richmond County, Virginia, Menoken was built of local materials such as sandstone. Approximately 80% of Menoken's original architectural matter has survived despite the house falling into disrepair. Unfortunately, the names of the architect and the free and enslaved craftspeople who erected the house have been lost to time. This mantle, made of yellow pine and tulip poplar, includes dental molding and would have been one of 5 mantles in the house. While Francis Lightfoot Lee signed his name to the Declaration of Independence that proclaimed that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, he held 200 enslaved people in bondage. These pieces really speak more also to the larger use of enslaved labor for architecture in early America. Next, we are met with our pride section, in which makers show pride in their work. Take, for example, this advertisement. Quote, "The subscriber, the original maker of the celebrated Pointer chairs, wishes to inform the public and all who want chairs of his make, grateful for past favors, respectfully asks a continuance of the same, and being now on my own books. Richard Dick Pointer." The words of Black craftspeople such as Richard Pointer inspire us to confront the complicated dichotomies between slave labor and art. When Pointer received his freedom, he boldly declared himself the, quote, "original maker of the celebrated Pointer chairs," taking back an art form once attributed to others. They encourage us to separate labor, activity involving mental or physical effort done in order to achieve a purpose or result, from work, from the application of human energy and imagination to the physical world. To not acknowledge their creativity and the pride they felt in their work is to reduce them to their status as enslaved people. The objects here represent the mastery of art, human energy, imagination, and craft, while also challenging us to see the beauty and feel the pride in the artistry of Black makers. In the November 16th, 1849 edition of the Western Weekly Review newspaper, Richard Dick Pointer declared that he was now on his own book. Pointer's declaration came shortly after his emancipation. He soon established a chair workshop complete with a horse-powered lathe used to create the posts and rungs on the chairs. Pointer used green woodworking methods to build sturdy chairs, eliminating the need for nails or glue. He made a variety of chairs, including rocking chairs, armchairs, children's high chairs, and sitting chairs. Pointer's chairs are distinctive because of their design, including mole-eared or curved back post secured by wooden pegs. He used sugar maple and hickory woods to form the chair and white oak splits to form the seats. Pointer taught the trade to his son James and established a family business, thus advancing their economic status in the years before the Civil War. Pointer died in 1882 at the age of 81. This chair is on loan to us from the Tennessee State Museum. We also have a high chair made by Dick Pointer on loan to us from the Battle of Franklin Trust for this exhibition. And here next to the chair, you can see that advertisement where Pointer writes that he is on his own book, and that is right down here. He is now on his own book. Here we have a fan made by Tobias Scott. And while enslaved on a James Island, South Carolina plantation, Tobias Scott perfected the art of making fashionable, masterfully ornate fans from bird feathers. Scott's enslaver permitted him to make and sell these fans in his spare time. Scott understood the value of his craft and worked hard to earn enough money to purchase his freedom. He and his family moved to Charleston after the war, where he opened a shop on Water Street. Local newspapers often captured both the sale and advertisement of Scott's fans. This fan captures the subtle yet vibrant character of his creations. An open fan comprised of hawk feathers with matching horizontal stripes, a wire run through the handcrafted handle made of woven quills, securing the feathers in place, and a solid, black, delicate ribbon is tied around the handle. This is on loan to us, courtesy of the Charleston Museum. Our next section is identity. This section, the objects in this section identify people who people are and how they were seen. They speak to the craftspeople's needs to tell their own story and showcase their individuality through their work. In the late 1930s, Lucindy Wallace Jordan sat for an interview with the Federal Writers Project. The interviewer asked Miss Jordan about her life, and she recalled that her mother, Patsy, had been a fine weaver. Jordan proudly posed for a photograph with Patsy's spinning wheel. And one of the quotes we have from that interview is from Lucindy. She says, "This is her spinning wheel, and it can still be used. It is used. I use it sometimes now. It has made our own clothes and stockings too." She posed next to that spinning wheel with great pride, and she beamed, according to the interviewers. Lucindy and Patsy represent enslaved and later free Black craftswomen whose skills connected to their identity and a greater sense of self. Their experiences mirror the work of other Black craftspeople who created objects closely related to their life and experiences. Black craftspeople hired apprentices from their home countries, maintaining bonds with their homeland, and photographed people forever, preserving likenesses and legacies. Other objects in this section were used to identify enslaved people by skill and reduce them to a number. Haitian-born Dutrell Barjon relocated with his mother to New Orleans, Louisiana in 1809, joining a large community of recently immigrated Haitians following the Haitian Revolution. Shortly after his arrival, he apprenticed with Haitian free person of color cabinet maker Jean Rousseau for 3 years, where he learned the trade and business. In Rousseau's shop, Barjon learned how to create furniture that appealed to the elite of New Orleans, including large, oversized furniture designed to fill plantation homes. In 1821, Barjon established his own cabinet-making shop at 245 Royal Street, known as Furniture Row, where he produced fine furniture and imported furniture from Europe. Barjon hired apprentices from Haiti, furthering connections to his identity and homeland. In 1834, Barjon advertised that he had articles of furniture for sale that were, quote, made in this city, furthering his connection to the city of New Orleans. Barjon's business prospered, and in later years, he retired to Paris, leaving his shop under the leadership of his son, Dutrell Barjon Jr. And this is one of my favorite objects from the exhibition, largely because of the construction that we see inside by Dutrell. And this is on loan to us from the Historic New Orleans collection. In 1764, the Charleston, South Carolina City Council passed a law requiring hired out enslaved people to wear a badge identifying their trade, skill, identification number, and year. Composed of copper, the geometric tags were either pinned to clothing or worn around the neck. This yearly process of hiring out enslaved skilled labor offers a multidimensional glimpse into the economic realm of the institution of enslavement. Not only did hired out enslaved people wear these badges, but in certain cases, they were also forced to use their metalsmithing skills to make these badges. These badges symbolize the sinister work of slavery and the complicated work of Black craftspeople whose labor ensure the continuation of this oppression. And this is on loan to us also from the Charleston Museum. But the chance to sojourn or dwell elsewhere has long been a place of opportunity for some. For others, their involuntary movement forced them to new, unfamiliar homes while longing for their homelands. In some instances, free Black craftspeople used their moments of respite to work freely, create new lives for themselves and others, and travel and record untouched landscapes that supported those self-emancipating in their sojourn. Not lost in migration was what they learned, as many Black craftspeople brought with them generations of old craft traditions to new places. The forced movement westward of enslaved craftspeople and their craft knowledge was fundamental to American expansion. While methods of movement differed, what remained constant was the significant impact that Black craftspeople had on the locations where they lived and worked. The objects in this section represent Black craftspeople who freely traveled in search of more, and those forced to travel from their homes. Some searched for peace, freedom, and liberty, while others searched for a place they could call their own. Born in the Virgin Islands, Peter Benson's life navigated the journey between place and race. He learned the silversmithing trade in Philadelphia between 1799 and 1806. Next, his travels soon took him to the Danish West Indies, the islands of St. Croix, where he also established a silversmithing business. For the duration of his life, he traveled between Philadelphia and St. Croix, crossing the color line, as records in Philadelphia recorded him as white, while records in St. Croix recorded him as biracial. His work, sophisticated and detailed, was sought after by wealthy members of society. Benson is the only recorded free Black silversmith in the Americas, and his journey highlights the interconnections between running a successful business and race. Here we have a 5-gallon jar made by Hiram Wilson and Company on loan to us from the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, Bayou Bend. Reverend and enslaver John M. Wilson brought Hiram Wilson, James Wilson, and Wallace Wilson to Texas from South Carolina through forced migration in the 1830s. By the 1850s, John Wilson taught the 3 enslaved men pottery techniques derived from the pottery traditions of Edgefield, South Carolina, bringing those traditions westward. In March 1872, Hiram, James, and Wallace opened the H. Wilson and Company Pottery in rural Guadalupe County, Texas. From 1872 until the company's dissolution in 1884, H. Wilson and Company pottery flourished, utilizing a primarily salt glaze technique from South Carolina in their ceramic productions. And I think that's probably one of the most interesting parts of this Wilson piece, is that connection back to Edgefield, South Carolina. There's a rich tradition of pottery there, and another great exhibition called Hear Me Now, which originated at the Met Museum that looked at the potters of Edgefield. And I think what's interesting is seeing that migrate westward, that pottery tradition. The final part of the exhibition is what we call moments. The exhibition is undeniably connected to moments in time, moments that define us as a nation, moments that highlight the pursuits of freedom, and moments that showcase the creativity and resistance of Black people creating art in a world determined to deny them permanent legacies. The ceremonial chair from the University of the South represents a moment in which a university reckoned with its troubled past. Rubel Awaka's ladder-back chair represents a moment in which contemporary Black craftsperson sought to connect with Black craftspeople of the past by recreating their works, using their construction techniques, and teaching others the same building methods thus exposing Black craftspeople of the past to new generations. Each of these moments begs us to consider how we connect across time and geography to those who lived in the past and make our present possible. Made of Louisiana cypress wood, this chair is a piece of Layton Place Plantation, home of Leonidas Polk, Episcopal Bishop of Louisiana and the founder of the University of the South, Sewanee. Enslaved carpenters, father and son, Altimer and Taylor McKeithen, likely constructed this chair between 1841 and 1864. This chair not only symbolizes the connections between slavery in Louisiana and the Episcopal Church, it also signifies the relationship between slavery and higher education. The early wealth and stability of the University of the South rested on the backs of an estimated 40,000 enslaved people held in bondage by the first 295 donors of the university. Their labor ensured that the university would be successful as it sought to educate white men of the South. After emancipation, Altimer and Taylor continued to work as carpenters in New Orleans. Due to Polk's founding of the university, the chair became an essential part of the university's ceremonies until recent years. And this is on loan to us courtesy of the University of South in Sewanee. And finally, chairmaker, teacher, and researcher Rebel Awaka crafts chairs that center on Black aesthetic traditions and histories through craft. This chair, the quilt back pointer chair number 1, reflects the craft traditions of Richard Poynter, who we spoke about earlier. Using Poynter's green woodworking techniques, Awaka crafted this chair to honor his legacy and fight back against craft histories that ignored Black makers. And I really enjoy this quote from Rebel. He says, "Craft can be a radical pedagogy telling alternate histories that aren't being told by the dominant culture." There are tons more objects in this exhibition, 47 in total from various lenders. We are thankful to all of them for lending to this show. But I also want to take you through real quick that after the exhibition leaves the DAR at the end of the year, after it closes, starting next year, we'll take a 4-year journey to other locations. So when it leaves the DAR Museum early next year, you'll find the exhibition at the North Carolina Museum of Art in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then it will travel to the Gibbs Museum of Art in Charleston, South Carolina. After that, the exhibition travels to the Historic New Orleans Collection in the French Quarter of New Orleans. At the beginning of 2028, the exhibition will then be at the Tennessee State Museum in Nashville, Tennessee, and will close out at the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley in Winchester, Virginia at the end of 2028, second half of 28. And then I can't close this out or wrap it up without mentioning the catalog that accompanies this exhibition. You can buy a copy of the exhibition catalog, which features all the objects, images of all the objects and information about them, as well as 10 essays by scholars that build on the objects and subjects covered within the exhibition. You can buy that online at shop.dar.org. You go to the museum shop and there it is. We'll ship it right to you. We are thankful for this publication, which was done by the University of North Carolina Press. And with that, I say thank you.
Thanks, William. That was really great. I kept keeping up with questions that I was going to ask you, and then you kept answering them. So hopefully our attendees have some questions. So can you talk a little bit more about the women in crafts? Was cooking considered at all when you were developing this? I know that you had several different themes as you started. So can you tell us a little bit how you came to the themes and then kind of how the women are represented as well?
Right, yeah. So when we originally came up with the themes of the exhibition, we had a whole separate section on women, but found that women kind of entailed various parts of craft. So we tried to include them throughout the exhibition. We have another set of objects within the exhibition, or another object in particular, which is a rice fanning basket that is on loan to us from the Museum of Early Southern Decorative Arts. It was made in Georgetown, South Carolina, and was used by women to fan rice, break up rice from its casings to then be used for cooking. So separating the two parts of that. We have the spinning wheel in the exhibition, which connects to the story of Lucindy Jordan. And then we know that working alongside Tobias Scott is his wife. So women are really throughout the exhibition in some form or fashion. And then there's also so many unknowns. We have a lot of unknown, unidentified makers in the exhibition. We know that women are working in various trades, and they could have had their hands on some of these objects.
And then two other questions that are very related. So, are there textiles featured in the exhibition or the fiber arts, and have things survived? So I think it's building on the women, but
Yeah.
people want to know about the textiles.
Yeah, so we have two textiles in the exhibition. Both have connections to female makers as well. On loan to us from the American Folk Art Museum is a quilt made at the Knob Plantation by the Morton sisters. And this is in our Pride section, in which we wouldn't really know who the Morton sisters were or that they made this quilt if it weren't for a little paper tag pinned to the inside or backside of this quilt that identified the Morton sisters as making it, which showed pride by the family in what these sisters had produced. And because of that, other quilts by the Morton sisters have been able to be identified. And then we have a coverlet in our collection that is on view in the exhibition as well. A very big blue piece that comes from a plantation that in Kentucky that identified a head weaving woman. It doesn't give her name. There are several women listed in the inventory for this plantation by this family, and they mention a head weaving woman had made this particular piece. We don't know who she is, but we can narrow it down to a few based on those references.
Yeah. And like you said, I think that women used a lot of these objects and items as well. So it's not necessarily disconnected from women, but it's also touches so many different lives in so many different ways that you couldn't just segregate them to one section.
Right. Yeah, like the coffee pot that's on loan to us from Mesda, also a silver coffee pot made in Charleston, South Carolina in the 1760s. It may have been made in the shop of Alexander Petrie by Abraham, who was a black silversmith, but also could have been used in a house where a black woman was preparing a coffee service or a tea service, or some sort of service, and had to handle that piece as well. So not only are women making some of the objects, but they're also, you're right, handling some of these.
Emma has heard a rumor that archaeology contributed to this exhibit. So can you tell us a little bit how archaeology fits in?
Yeah, so in the mastery section, we have a piece on loan to us from Mount Vernon, George Washington's Mount Vernon, the Mount Vernon Ladies Association. It is archaeological fragments of a colonaware bowl. So this is a locally produced piece of pottery that is created using craft traditions, probably brought from West Africa. And it was excavated in part of the slave quarters on Mount Vernon. So most likely made by enslaved black people on Mount Vernon in the slave quarters for use in that part of the plantation. We have bricks from a private collection that come from the original pug mill, which the bricks were made to build a historic house named Wilton in what's now Richmond, Virginia. It was originally located at Henrico. And then we have objects on loan to us from the George Washington Foundation in Fredericksburg, Virginia. These objects come from Ferry Farm, which is George Washington's childhood home, and include a mended bowl and wig curlers. All of these, there's 8 wig curlers on loan to us from Ferry Farm, as well as the mended bowl. And the wig curlers were excavated from the workyard site at Ferry Farm. The mended bowl the bowl itself wasn't made by black craftspeople. but it was put back together by Black craftspeople. So there is a tradition of glue making at the Ferry Farm location. And it would have been one of the enslaved people on the plantation, on the farm, who would have made that glue. Someone who had known science and ingredients and tinkered with this very hot and smelly process to put that bowl back together to make it look whole again so that Mrs. Washington could use it in the house.
We have a question about Congress. So will you or any of the other co-curators be available during the DAR Continental Congress in June to answer questions or do a special gallery tour of the exhibition? What
I
is your
will
plan for
absolutely be
Congress?
around. I will absolutely be around for Congress. I can't miss it. Congress is a great week for all the members who are able to come in to the DAR and not only catch up with each other, but see what's going on in the museum. So I look forward to hopefully running into a bunch of our members and talking more about the exhibition in the gallery.
And our co-curators, they will not be there for Congress, but they are coming back for our symposium, which is
Mhm.
happening in November. So you can keep an eye out for details on that. You can check out our program website and see the details on for the symposium. William, are they planning to be back any other time?
Torrin and Tiffany are professors at UNC Greensboro and at the University of the South. They've got some pretty busy schedules teaching classes, but we hope to get them in for a couple of special tours here and there, and maybe for certain events. So we'll keep you all posted. I would say keep an eye on the website for more. And something else I should mention, which I didn't, is that we do have a website for this exhibit coming. Sarah and I are working on that. So if you aren't able to get to DC and see it, you'll be able to see the online version later this year. Or you could also buy the catalog and see all the objects and read all the essays in there as well.
Yeah, and even right now, so if you just Google DAR Museum Fighting for Freedom, our landing page will come up. And on that landing page is the press release, but also several links to do the audio tour or to check out all the objects on Smartify. So everything you saw here today, if you wanted to learn a little bit more, you can click through that and see each individual object and all of the interpretation that goes with that as well.
All the programs are, am I right? All the programs that are related to the exhibit can be found there as well.
Yep,
Yeah,
programs. And I think there's probably even a link to the catalog. So if you want to make it even easier, you
excellent.
can go ahead and click to that website. And all the Tuesday talks for the rest of this year will be featuring Fighting for Freedom. So Dr. Tiffany Moman will be in May, and Dr. Torrin Gatson will be in August. So if you have burning questions for the other co-curators, you can catch them then as well.
Yeah,
All right, that's all our questions. William, anything else you wanted to add?
that's it. I hope you all are able to get out to DC and see the exhibit. If not, hopefully you can get to one of those other locations and check it out in person there.
Yep, or check it out online.
And
Thank you
check it
so
out online.
much for joining us.
Thank you
Bye.
all.